Hello Norrathians, Vasiagio here, and I am standing in the Six Flags Over Norrath build. Since the last episode, I did discover that I have a little bit of a problem, but I can work around it, which was the item limit for books, which I thought would match if you added expanders, does not. So I have 1200 max because of the expanders, but the house limit for books is actually 1000. So I have ran out of books, or places to put books, so I have taken some books down. Demora came up with a great idea of putting these in to replace the planters, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Sarex agrees. It's one item rather than the 8 books plus the other items to fill in the soil. This is all one item. The soil is the inside of it, so it works out great, which this is the large Shishar treasure chest, and she had 2 of them that she gave me. So I have replaced both of them. So that gave me 16 extra books I can work with. The other thing is for the Kelethan area, I could always use building blocks or something to make the pathing. Same thing for Freeport. I could do the pathing with building blocks. If I need the books, I can continue those on from here to go to the next ride that we'll be working on. I am finishing up the build for the Gorowyn loop. So the Gorowyn loop, in the last episode I had started working on the station, and I had some troubles with getting the inner loop. I actually ended up having to make the ride a little bigger to fill up the space so I could actually get the loop in. So I did not video that because it was a long, tedious process of playing around with things and getting things the right size, lots of moving things. But I've got the track in now, and I've got the stairs that lead up to it. I have a few house actors in here. The track is made with railings that I've used the circle tool. Since some of these pitch weird, since I'm doing it upright rather than flat on the ground, since those pitch weird, I had to roll them. And then after that, I went through and made sure that they were rolled the same direction, because if you take one of these and you roll it the other direction, it sticks it way out. So I wanted to make sure that it was rolled the correct direction. So I did that all the way around to make sure it looked good and was even. And I've got the cars in. So I was a little frustrated at first, but now I'm happy with it. It just took a little time to play around with it, get everything the way I wanted it. Got a couple of house actors on the ride, but I left the ride open so you can actually get in the ride and role play. And I've got a little bit of extra theming right here. The Sarnak is actually going to be the ride operator. And I've got a gnome standing here. And yes, he is elevated off the ground, and that is on purpose. If you look up here in the corner, we've got with the new Tinkerfest items that will be coming very soon, less than a week now. We've got some pieces that we will be able to play around with, and I thought that this particular item would work good here. It's a set of springs. It is called the Rusty Carbonite Springs, which you see in the plane of innovation all over the place. But I've got this house actor here that is wanting to ride the ride, and he is elevated off the ground, and the Sarnak is talking about his height, the problem with his height. So I'm making a height indicator here, and these right here, these springs, will be right up under his boots, and I'm going to use the springs, just the top portion of the spring, so everything else will be hidden under the platform. That way it looks like he's got his gnomish spring boots on. So the ride operator is telling him no, that he cannot ride it with his gnomish spring boots. He has to be a certain size without the boots on. And I've got a little bit of foreshadowing going on here, if you notice. He's got kind of an unusual helm on compared to what he's wearing. And up on the ride itself, we have a little rotanga up here that also has a little unusual helm on. Just some little foreshadowing for something that will be coming in the future. Later on, you'll see that. I will probably go back and twink up some of the other house actors, maybe a few here and there. Not all of them, of course, but just a few of them. So let's get finished with this height indicator. So I've got one there placed, and let's see, is it all the way down? It is. Okay, so I've got that one, and I want to copy it and put the other one up above it, and then a third one. So let's get into the layout editor. Once I get my save, there we go. And I was working on another house, so let me get the files for this house. There we are. So I've got this one. It needs to be pitched a little bit more, closer to 90. So let's apply that, and then we're going to copy and paste to these. And we are going to go up one on both of those, because I've got them still at the scale of 1. Actually, yeah, I think it's 2 up. We shall see. We'll save it. No, it was just 1. So let's go back 1. It's a little bit different than tiles. I always forget the tiles actually move double whatever the scale is, because the center point is in the center of the tile. So the number shown here is the radius, not the total diameter. But for railings, it is actually the full diameter. So if I move it 1 from a scale of 1, it puts it side by side. So down with that. Okay, and I've got 2 there, that's why that one's lighter. And I need to roll 190 degrees, I believe. not roll. Well, roll does work. Let's see. If I pitch from the 90, okay, let's see, and then I rotate it and it's not exact, but then I can move it up. I want it just above his hat, basically, because his hat's going to be considered in the height as well. Actually, he's cheating, so it needs to actually be lower. So let's shrink this one down a bit. Move this one down and shrink both of those. Let's get a new from difference on these. And we will put those at 0.75. Let's try that. Okay, now I need to make sure this one goes down to the ground. Okay, and make sure this one goes down to meet it. Okay, and then this one down as well. Okay, so he would not make it if he did not have his Gnomish spring boots and his hat on. He would not be tall enough to ride. So that works. With his boots on and his hat, he is tall enough to ride. Now this one, I want to off-center a bit, move it to the south a bit. So just getting a new from difference of that. Come on, there we go. And we will move it 0.2 south. So I don't want it exactly centered. There we go. Actually, it's a little too far. Let's do 0.1 north. Okay, that's better. Now can we tweak this up a bit? Roll of 90, rotate of -180, and the pitch I think is okay. I don't want to mess around with the pitch too much because then it'll start dancing around. Okay, so that's behind the other one. And it's a little bit smaller, so it's inside the other one. Good. Okay, so that part's done. Just got to do some minor tweaks whenever I get the spring boots. And I need to name this house actor and this house actor. The other two are named, so those are done. Poor high elf. Okay, so I've got some books over here. Let's see. Let's put out some more books just so I know how many I have to work with, because the limit is 1,000. So I've got those two will make, and two of these will make a path. So that's 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this will make 3 sections of path. If I can get one more of these, one more of these, or 2 more of these, that's 4 sections of path. And I should be able to get a few more. And one more, yes. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections of path. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically this row, this row, this row, this row, this row, and this row. So I can make that many paths, that much of a path. So I could always extend it from here and go out for the station for the river rapids ride that'll be over here. And I'm not going to use these right now, so might as well get those up so they're not in my way. Okay, so I've got that. And do I have enough room to put 4 more? Because it takes 4 more to make a path. Let's see. 1, 2. So far so good. And I've reached my limit. So let me go ahead and pick up those 2, because that's not a full path. So I could always get 3 more from here and bring this down. I could do that. And that would give me 3 more books. I could technically get rid of these right here. I'd rather not. I'd rather leave those. And I could get rid of these right here, but again, I'd rather not. I've got that corner there. So then I'd have to deal with the corner, and then the path would be right up against this. I'd rather the path start from here. And over here, I could remove the books from this planter and put in another planter. That would, if I could put in another planter, I could get rid of the grass and the soil and just use one item for a planter, which would be something like maybe the Gorowyn planter, or maybe, ooh, I have an idea, and I'm not going to mention it because if I do it, it'll be a surprise for the next video. But yeah, I could get another 6 books from there. That's enough to do a path. So that's another path piece there. But I also need to use those path pieces here. That's where I need to use them. So I'm thinking any more pathing from here is going to be just a marker along, and use the sand as the pathway, because this is a beach area. So I could use kind of a natural path and just use items to guide the way. Trees, shrubbery, so on. Which would add to the theming as well, so I might as well do that. If I wanted to, I could always use railings, something like that. Okay, so I got enough for 6 path pieces. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I got 6 more books over there, which would total up to... that's not 6 path pieces, because I need 2 books and then 2 of the other books. So it's basically 1.5, and I can put 2 more books down, so that would be 8 total path pieces. Not counting that, because that is uneven. That's 3. So I could do 8 total path pieces. So from here, I could always remove these as well. They're not totally necessary. But 8 more path pieces, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically this length here added on, which would be good. That would be pretty much perfect right there. So I could do that. I might do that in the next video just to get it done, and then I won't have to do any more pathing besides the natural path and the paths that I will be doing in Gorowyn, but will not be using books, or not Gorowyn, Kellethan and Freeport, that will not be using books. Okay, so the next part that we will be working on is going to be the river rapids. Oh, let me pick up some of these pieces over here, because I was playing around with these. They don't get quite big enough. So I had to make the loop with my hands, or with the layout editor. Make it from scratch. I did move the gong for the restaurant and the greeter. Moved it over closer to the path. And then for Gorowyn, I couldn't think of a bench at first. So I was having trouble because nothing, if you go in Gorowyn, they don't have benches. If you go to Timmer's Deep, they don't have benches. They have the redwood stools. And I was thinking of using, 2 redwood stools and putting a sumac or piece of rosewood in between. But Demora had linked this item, which is the Gorkle desk. And she was like, well, what about using just the top piece, because the top piece kind of feels like Gorowyn. And I agree. It's got these little pieces that stick out like the Sarnax's noses. And it's got the little curvature coming down. So I just used one of those and sunk it down. The only bad thing that I realized is they have no collision. So I was like, well, I will put a railing. And at first I was going to sink the railing all the way in to where you didn't see it, just so it has some collision and you could actually sit down and so on. But I liked, when I started pushing it down, I liked the way the wood contrasted. So I kept it up a little bit just to have that contrasted wood and give it a little bit more decoration to it. So that is going to be what I'll do for my Gorowyn benches. It's Yes, it's one item and one building block, but I think it looks good. And Gorowyn doesn't really need a whole lot of benches because it's right here by Kino's, which has a Kino's bench here, so I don't really need any benches over here. And then over here is a bench for Kino, so I don't really need any benches. I mean, I might put one down here, right next to the trash can here, or move it around depending on how I build the next riding station. And I'm loving this ship. Loving this ship. It turned out so nice. Oh, I still have a house actor. Oh yeah, I've got to make some more house actors and put up on the ship. And this one you can get into. You would have to fly. You might be able to walk on water and jump, but I doubt it. But it is at an angle, so if you do want to actually role play in here, you will be upright when you sit, so you will not look exactly right on the bench. So, and that's only because of the fact that it's angled. Okay, so what I am thinking over here is the river rapids. I've got some of the waterfall pieces, I've got some of the splash pieces, which are going to be laying down in the ride, and it's going to be similar to the Kino's Aqueduct's log flume, except it's wider. It's a lot wider. It's about twice the width. And I did not want to go with these building blocks again because it would just be too repetitive. So what I'm thinking is out in Timorous Deep, they have that pyramid structure. So I've got these fir benches here, fir tables, that I could use to make a ziggurat, which is a flattened pyramid basically. This right here I was hoping would make a good entryway. It is very similar to another one. Let me see if I can find it on me. Is that it? No. Oh, I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. These two look very similar. It has the same style of the legs. It's just different textures, different materials basically. One's a metal and one's a stone. But with this particular one, the Zeganite, you can actually walk through. With the fir, you can't. It has an invisible barrier. It has collision to it, so you cannot. You can, even if you raise it up a little bit, you still cannot. So what I was thinking is putting it on top of two of those to where it would be higher up, and one of these would be on one side of the leg and the other on the other side of the leg to make it a wider or a taller opening. Then you'd be able to walk through. And with that in mind, that would be a pyramid that you would adventure through. So let's get this out of the way. And at first I was going to use the City of Mist stairs, and flip those over and use those as kind of a trough for the water to flow through. But in fact, I was even thinking of using these tables and flipping them upside down, because those would make really nice troughs as well. But you wouldn't be able to actually get in the ride, you'd be above it. So it doesn't work out. And then these are not curved on the bottom or flat angled on the bottom. They actually have a duplicate of the stairs on the bottom. So doesn't really work out the way I wanted. But then I thought about the bridges, the Dalgar bridges, and I was going to use the Dalgar bridges, but I didn't like how shallow they were. But if I actually take a couple of the bridges and overlap them, then I can make it deeper. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I've got some theming pieces already out. Those are in here just so I can make sure that they're in my item count, because I will be using those. And these actual palm trees, I really like these, but I'm actually going to go with the other palm trees. Let me get rid of that. I'm actually going to go with the other palm trees for the main theming, and these particular ones are going to be sunk into the ground as little ferns throughout the forest. And I say forest, but it's not going to be a huge forest. So I've got the bridges. Do I have the rest of the bridges on me? I don't know if I have the rest of them on me. Yes, I do. Okay, let's move you over here. Okay, so I've got the bridges. If I take a bridge and take another one, actually let me just pick this one up and make them the same size to start out with. And I have these overlapped a bit. And raise them up. And then flip them. Does it roll? Well, either will work. It's not exact, but I'm not using the layout editor yet. And pitch the opposite direction. Then I can actually combine these two pieces to make a trough. And of course, this is just me playing around, not actually using the layout editor and getting everything perfect. Oops. Basically, kind of like this. That way, and I can line these up side by side. Once I get one made the way I like it, I can line them up side by side and curve them and do the turns, and it will be wider and deeper. So I think that will work. These are considered building blocks, and my building block count is currently better than my item count, which is unusual for me, but I've done a lot of theming with items. So I have more building block space, so I want to use more building blocks, and these are considered building blocks. So if I use these instead of using the tiles and the stairs and stuff, I can use 2 pieces of building blocks to make one section of it rather than using a bunch of different pieces. 1, 2, 3, well, 3 pieces mainly. 3 pieces per little section. But these will actually go more distance, I think. Especially when I get them perfectly set the way I want. But at this point, I think I'm going to call it the end of the video. In the next episode, we will get to work on the actual ride for the river rapids. I'm thinking it needs to be a jungle theme. I want to stay with the Gorowyn aspect. I know that there's also a lot of the walking plants. There's also a lot of the raptor type lizards over in that area, so those might be part of this. They might be inside the pyramid itself. I certainly don't have enough pieces to do the pyramid, the ziggurat, so I will have to make some more. I only have 1 of the entrance tables at the moment, and I only have 5 of the other pieces, which I'll need a lot more. But if you can help me come up with a name, that would be great. And in the next episode, we will get to work on that part.